This review was a Patreon request by Transformer Brett 97. Shout out to both Brett and Yamix for being Patreon supporters. If you wish to support my efforts to give you good content like covers, ships, reviews, or even want Patreon-only polls, look in the description below. Thank you all for supporting me on YouTube and DA, and without you, there's no way for me to know how to get better and what I can improve on, as well as whether you even like what I'm doing. With that being said, enjoy the show. So, here's something you probably don't know about me. I don't particularly like Transformers or movies meant for TV shows. Transformers never really gave me a chill of, oh, I'd totally be into that, and none of the characters seemed that interesting to me, as they seem to just fill in the five-man band trope. Go to this video if you're curious as to what that is. In simplistic terms, it usually means the different parts of a group that makes them coherent. The leader, the heart, the lancer or the second in command, the brains, and the muscle. TV movies tend to just be extended episodes of a show, or particularly a two-part episode. Sometimes it's got a bigger budget, sometimes it's the same, just with a longer runtime. Or they have absolutely nothing to do with the source material, and they just kind of seem to be awkwardly not canon and meant to just give people an idea of what they're getting into. It's very rare that a show will delve into a deeper, more complex theme than they would in the show itself, because it still has to meet the same demographic. New potential customers and pre-existing fans have to be, happy about all of this. There's a balance. For example, a lot of people were disappointed by Equestria Girls movies because they didn't really delve into the world at all, and they were kind of just rehashes of episodes 1 and 2 from the first season. The plot seemed to be a cash grab of the trend of high school girl toys. And to add to that, it seemed like Sunset Shimmer at the time was more of a conniving nightmare moon. It's not to say that TV movies don't get it right. Shows like Batman the Animated Series with the Phantasm was really good, and it didn't alter or alienate the older audiences of the show, so then what are we talking about? That is literally the worst title I've ever seen. If you're not a fan of spoilers, then I'm not the reviewer for you. But here it is, Transformers Prime Beast Hunters Predacon Rising. Literally the worst title ever. Let's get this out of the way first and foremost. Who are the Transformers? Where did they come from? And why are they peeing on this FBI agent?
Hey! Bumblebee, stop lubricating the man.
Get that thing to stop, huh?
Well, to answer this, we must go back to the land of the 1980s, where it was appropriate to wear something like this. Hasbro has just created a new toy line with the company called Takara Tomy. After the succession of the G.I. Joes, these toys' main big selling point was the fact that they were transformable toys that went from cars to robotic people and then cars again. It was like an action figure and a Hot Wheel fused together. Due to this transformation, they were then called the Transformers. As a marketing tool, Hasbro and Takara decided to make them from comic books, video games, movies, and TV shows in order to spread the word of their product. But what was all this media about? They're just toys that go from cars to humanoids and back again. Well, luckily, most of this media is pretty much the same throughout the years, the same premise each and every single gosh darn time. Good guys, also known as the Autobots, have escaped from Cybertron, their home planet, because it's been destroyed, and now they have to fight against the bad guys, also known as the Decepticons, to protect their new home of the planet Earth, while living in peace with the humans. That's the barest bones of most of the Transformers movies and shows. Specifically, though, the movie that we're going to talk about comes from the 2013 computer animated show Transformers Prime, the most recent of the Transformers TV shows, specifically the end of Season 3, where the Autobots have now finally restored Cybertron to its former glory. Sort of.
Hold up. Hold the bucking phone.
What the fuck?
Are you talking about Transformers Prime?
Well, technically, I'm talking about the worst titled movie of Prime.
Babe, do you even know anything about the franchise?
Did you literally miss me talking about the creation of this franchise?
Well, I was mostly just staring at your butt for the last few minutes and only just clicked on what you were talking about, so yeah.
Bucka.
Anyway, Transformers Prime is something I so happen to know a lot about.
Oh, good. Then why don't you just nitpick everything I say that's in this review? Because I haven't seen a single damn thing of this show.
That's a great idea, babe.
Wait, but I was...
Fact check away!
I regret life. Optimus Prime gives us a synopsis of what happened prior to this movie, and why the kids from the show aren't really here in this great ceremony to knight Bumblebee, I guess? Then we find out that Megatron isn't really dead, just half dead.
Yeah, all dead. Well, with all dead, there's usually only one thing that you can do.
What's that?
Go through his clothes and look for loose change.
The devil, Unicron, tells him that Megatron will rise again, but only as Unicron's vessel to destroy God, Primus. It's very Slade and Trigon in Season 4 of Teen Titans, except it's even more pathetic.
Now I see why I use that in my Ultramoon review. It's hilarious.
Just get on with it.
Yes, get on with it!
I will. So let's start from the very start of the show instead, shall we? Season 1 was the introduction into the Transformers in disguise and how they've come to meet their human companions, as well as discover numerous ancient evils that the Decepticons want to use upon the Autobots hidden on Earth. Season 2 is the hunt for relics scattered on Earth, as these relics basically are the pinnacle of success for most missions to follow, up until we come across the ancient rare and extinct Predacons. Finally, Season 3 is a beast hunt, where they hunt down Predacon remains to stop the creation of a Predacon army. The whole reason Bumblebee gets knighted is because he kills Megatron at the end of Season 3. However, Megatron comes back from the dead as a possessed puppet because he is infused with the life energy of Unicron, an ancient evil come back after years of hibernation in the Earth's core. That's all I got for now.
Wait, so the energy of Unicron is the Earth, and the blood of Unicron is now flowing through the Earth.
Yeah, basically.
So blood for the blood god?
No, that's Warhammer, babe. Leave that talk for me, will you?
Oil for the oil god?
No, close enough.
Yay! And due to this being a finale movie, a lot of stuff is referenced for continuity, character development, and to make some jokes work. A lot of the character references a lot of material that happened prior to the seasons, and some of the lore behind what's happening right now. Or else Optimus Prime will give you the most wordy of expositions. In fact, he and the Autobot medic are probably the ones with the most lore characters in this movie. Yes, Optimus Prime, I'd like to take Cybertron MacGuffins for 300.
As a being comprised of pure energy, Unicron's anti-spark was vulnerable to this reliquary of the Primes.
Yes, and I'll take how basic evil versus good conflicts work for 200, Ratchet.
Regrettably, the struggle between creation and destruction is an eternal one.
If you're planning on making this movie your jumping point into the franchise, this is incredibly unwise. There's a lot of spoilers, character development that's already happened, progression even in the movie that needs the show for the context. So as a movie for you to watch to gain interest, it fails miserably. But as a movie that's a finale that concludes the full story, it's definitely really good. I imagine that a lot of people that were already fans of the show really appreciated the additional character development that they really were looking for as a conclusion to a little bit of a bittersweet ending. Speaking of the characters, let's talk about them. Though, I'm only gonna focus on maybe 4 of the characters that are in this script. Maybe more if there's more room. Mostly because there isn't really a lot of development with everybody else. Most of them are really unimportant roles except for the ones I'm going to talk about right now. Starting with someone who's really gotten popular over the years, Bumblebee. At this point of the series, Bumblebee has really gotten his voice back, he's had a lot of development in the show, and in this movie he's trying to focus on being a good leader, even though he is a little awkward about it. He's funny, he's smart, he's the most level-headed of the group. He's also pretty sneaky and is able to lie his way out of at least 2 situations in this movie. You can definitely tell that he's struggling with leading, as the first thing that comes up when he's put in charge is Predacons, who are apparently supposed to be extinct Decepticon survivors, and now Megatron is back with a whole new look. He definitely feels like he's just stepping into his shoes before he's ready, but he's adapting well enough. I like this character, but I do think that because I didn't have context of the show, it weakened my interest in him as a character since he doesn't seem to have really any big mistakes or any real mistakes, and it becomes kind of this Gary Stewish situation as a result.
And this is where I need to interject once again, my love, if you would be so kind.
Are you going to tell me that he's gone through a great deal of trial and tribulation before this and will likely be better in, oh, I don't know, reference to the rest of the show?
Pretty much, yeah.
I wouldn't have guessed.
Look, if you haven't watched the show, then it's going to need explaining. The character Bumblebee can be traced all the way through to the first episode, where we first introduced the main 5 characters of the show who all make appearances in the movie. Bumblebee's role during the War of Cybertron was a scout, and on many occasions he has proven himself worthy to be a confident leader and an excellent strategist. The one point I don't agree with is the fact that the show is clearly showing the homage to Michael Bay's Transformers, not giving Bumblebee a voice of his own. Why do you have to reference those pieces of shit for? Anyway, coming to the very last episode of Season 3, where he axes off Megatron and is restored with the voice box after falling into a pool of energon. He has truly proven himself to becoming more than a simple scout, but a warrior that all Cybertron can look to in pride.
Next is Megatron, and whoa, is his development kind of weird. Whereas Bumblebee needed more context, Megatron's role is pretty much explained to us from the start of this movie. He's pretty much bad mojo magic. Because of it, he can't technically die, and Unicron decides basically to give Megatron another chance, but only in body only. Throughout the movie, he's not really talking through his body, it's Unicron who is, and Megatron is there kind of as a prisoner. He's about what you expect, vengeful, hateful, just kind of a bad dude in general, though his real purpose isn't to be the bad guy, it's more just to be the punching bag for the real bad guy. The thing that makes his progress a little weird is we don't really see any true hesitation until once he's ready to kill Cybertron again. But by the end of the movie, suddenly he doesn't want to take over Cybertron anymore because
I now know the true meaning of oppression.
if that thing got you to change your mind, you, sir, are pretty fucking weak. He's only been taken control of for like a day or so, and the most that's been done to oppress him is that he was blasted with mind lightning, and Unicron doesn't let him do what he wants.
Because I now know...
You've only been through this for like 2 days. I think you'd be stronger than this, right?
Once again, I need to interject here, babe.
What, no lore?
So, yeah, Megatron. Raised from the dead and brought back to life again by Unicron. If you've watched the show, then you would at least have seen why this was possible. Basically, in Season 1, Megatron infuses himself with Dark Energon to make himself more powerful. The only downside is that the Dark Energon is the blood of Unicron, and therefore, by absorbing it, Megatron is under the control of Unicron. Well, that is until he's defeated in Season 2. Anyway, back to the movie. Still having the lifeblood within him, Unicron still has a host to control, and therefore comes back to life using Megatron's body as his own. While poor little Megatron has to sit back in his own head and root for his mortal enemy. Basically, Unicron is Rio Bakura, and Megatron is Good Bakura. If making a Yu-Gi-Oh comparison makes things easier for you old school nerds there, then so be it.
So, bad guy got too big for his britches after bigger, badder guy decides to wreck everything. Yeah. The problem with that is that here, he treats his interaction with Unicron like this has happened for a long while. Which, if you're assuming physics still work here like they do in most places, it would take them maybe 3 or 4 days of being oppressed. We're talking about Megatron here. The villain that, at least to my knowledge, has this iron will, a strategist, a villain that makes other villains wet themselves, and he's taken over by a dark spirit in less than a week. And he just gives it all up because he didn't have a turn in his own body. Not exactly great form, dude. It worked for Bakura from Yu-Gi-Oh! Because Bakura was showed some kind of internal struggle throughout with Rio. As soon as Rio was introduced, the stakes were then raised higher for their sanity. But based on what I see in this movie and what you're telling me, it actually weakens the effect of having this big bad take over. Speaking of Unicron, he's pretty much just your blanket bad guy. He doesn't really want to rule Cybertron, he wants to destroy Primus, or is Cybertron what? So, he's very vindictive, he's controlling, most of the time he reminds Megatron just how small he is in comparison. It's explained through a lot of exposition that this is supposed to be this endless battle of darkness and light, so you don't have to ask for much characterization. He's just kind of evil.
I'm just gonna make this a quick one. Yeah, he just sucks.
You have failed.
Smokescreen is what I would say is a lance to Bumblebee. He's not actively against him, but he's definitely one of the other Autobots that actually have some involvement as far as important character interactions with more characters than just Bumblebee.
Now see, there's a reason for the way he acts the way he does around Bumblebee. Remember when he said that Optimus nearly chose him to be the next Prime? Going back to the show, Smokescreen is there to comfort Optimus as he thinks he's going to die. With his supposed last words, Optimus is ready to name Smokescreen as the next Prime. Because of Smokescreen's backstory, being a royal guard, he turns the offer down and gets Optimus patched up instead. And Smokescreen now feels pushed to the side. I can sympathise with Smokescreen here. However, even he realises that his thoughts were rash because titles and affiliations count for nothing compared to experience and honour to your fellow soldier.
Which actually shows in the movie as well, since we see how he's the one thinking of the rash plan after his buddy, Mini Optimus Prime, gets nearly killed by the Predacons. Most of the Autobots only serve to really be backstory exposition or recaps of what happened in last episodes, last seasons, everything else. The only 3 Decepticons other than Megatron is Starscream, Knockout, and Shockwave. Knockout is a tiny, seemingly out-of-nowhere redemption arc when it's hinted that he was on the Autobots' side all along. Shockwave and Starscream are responsible for the Predacon population suddenly increasing on Cybertron by, well, 2. The one character I would definitely say is not only going into an arc of their own, but seems to be the most interesting to me is Predaking. Not because he totally turns into a metal badass dragon! Okay, maybe it's a little bit of that, but it's mostly his arc. He comes from a time before Autobots and Decepticons, where the Earth was populated by Predacons, or at least Cybertron was. Difference is that they turned into animals instead of cars and vehicles. A lost king trying to mourn the loss of his people and coming to grips with the idea that he's the very last of his kind. It's beautiful. As soon as he hears that there are more, he's thrilled and still proud and spiteful at Autobots and the Decepticons, so he goes on his own. For none, Predaking is definitely my favorite character in this.
You're mostly correct here, babe, for a few details here and there.
They literally say his backstory at least like 3 times in this movie, and you're telling me that there's more?
Shockwave bred the Predaking from fossilized remains he found on Cybertron, the original hunt for the Autobots, thinking that he was simply a beast under his control. However, as Season 3 went on, Predaking discovers his past and learns how to transform, much to the surprise to Megatron, the other Decepticons, and even Shockwave, his creator that didn't even know Predacons could transform in the first place. This automatically, for some reason, gives Predaking the ability to think for himself.
So then, what about Knockout? He seems to talk like before he defected side, similarly to how the niece from Power Rangers Ninja Storm acts when she's defected. Was that in the show too?
For like 3 seconds in the last episode of Season 3, yes. Basically, at the last moment, he changes size because he always wanted to be with the winners, but immediately gets bitch slapped for it.
So basically, like I said before, totally last minute, and he's still kind of a douche.
Take a look for yourself.
What? I'm joining the winning team.
But what about the look of it? Well, based on my viewing of this movie and being exposed to like an episode, I forget which one, as well as any other Transformers show I've seen in the past, this style is like a computer animated version of robots in disguise. Though I did see some Transformers animated influence in some of the designs for characters like RC. I think most of the designs are great, except for Optimus Prime when he doesn't have his shield up. They got his original voice actor to come on board, and that's great. He's a unique and signature part of this Transformers series. Problem? It might just be me, but Optimus Prime's face looks a little too pretty for Peter Collins' voice. Just keeping his face covered would have been nice, or maybe giving him something for aging features. However, his and Ratchet's design fall flat for me. Doesn't mean that there couldn't be any improvements. When you're in the late 1980s and so on, you don't really have a lot of detail to work with, and you make up for it with story or with how goofy it all is. Now that it's in modern times and the designs need to be more evolved and the details need to be just as important as the story. The visuals are definitely epic, the voice acting is pretty cool, and the music is a lot of fun. Overall, it's a great finale coming from someone who's just never seen the show and even really likes Transformers. It's gotten me interested in the show, though, I will say that, but I don't think that this is a good jumping point for a new fan trying to get into something new. My recommendation to watch this after you watched at least Season 3. This has been your Future Evil Overlord, Crimson Glow, and if you come up with a title for the show that's already a title for the subtitle, don't add 2 other subtitles to your final movie!
Are you username Ladiesman217?
I don't know what you're talking
Are
about.
you username Ladiesman217?